Beginning of the digestive system. So, looking at functions of the digestion system, it's kind of what you normally think of. You take in food, so you eat. You break it down into molecules small enough that you can absorb it. So, when you are chewing, you're starting to break it down, and it continues to break down into the stomach and then in your small intestine until you can get it to small enough where it can be absorbed. So you eat, you break it down, which is kind of what we think of digestion, and you absorb it. And then you get rid of anything that you can't digest. So indigestible remains is anything that you can't break down. And so this we consider waste. So you get rid of it through defecation. So eat, you digest, you absorb what you can, and then you get rid of the rest. Looking at the organs, it starts in the mouth. So this is a one-way street, normal. So it goes from mouth out. So one way. You go pharynx, which remember is another term for the back of the throat. You go esophagus, which is connection between the mouth and the pharynx and the stomach. We have small intestine, we have large intestine, and then we have the exit, which is the anus. We also have, so those are the main digestive organs, what I just mentioned, because they're just kind of all tubular organs. And then we have what we call accessory digestive organs, where they help. So teeth is actually considered digestive organ, an accessory one, because this helps break down. So this is kind of the beginning of digestion actually happens in the mouth with the teeth and saliva because you're starting to break down food already so that it can be more manageable for your stomach and your small intestine to continue to digest. Your tongue is an accessory digestive organ, so this is helping in your mouth and kind of arrange food around your teeth so it can be broken down. It also has taste buds as well. We're going to learn about the gallbladder later. Gallbladder is going to hold a substance called bile, and bile is necessary, and it's a storage container for bile, necessary for fat digestion, which we'll talk about later. We also have glands that are associated with digestion. Now, not the typical glands that you think of, not endocrine glands as much. We'll talk about hormones, but we're not talking about endocrine glands or sweat glands. These are going to be producing secretions that are going to help break down food. So, salivary glands have enzymes in them, and we'll talk about those. The liver is going to help with breaking down food and kind of managing what you are taking in. And then the pancreas is going to be a major one. So, we talked about the pancreas when we talked about the endocrine system. The pancreas, again, is a mixed gland, meaning it has endocrine and exocrine. We already talked about the endocrine part, so now we're going to talk about the exocrine part, where it makes digestive enzymes, releases it in a duct that goes into the small intestine. So we'll talk about those later. So, digestive processes that we're going to look at. So, first is ingestion, and that's actually eating. And this is a conscious decision. Sometimes we don't necessarily think about it. You start eating chips, and then you're all of a sudden ate the entire bag. But we made the decision to grab the chip bag and open it and start eating it. So, it is a conscious decision to eat food, and that's called ingestion. Propulsion is going to be a little bit different. So this is actually pushing food along. So once you chew and swallow, you don't want just the food just to sit there. It needs to go through the digestive system, which we also call the alimentary canal. So all the tubes. So you want it to move through the tubes, because you want it to go down into your small intestine, your large intestine, so everything can be absorbed. So this is going to be involuntary, not a conscious decision. It's going to occur because of smooth muscle as well. And there's going to be two movement ways that we're going to talk about. The one that's moving forward. So this is peristalsis. This moves forward. Because we're going to have another one that's segmentation that actually just kind of swooshes and sloshes back and forth to mix. So this is actually moving forward or propulsion. What happens is you contract the smooth muscle and relax in certain areas. So think about it, and I'll show you on another kind of slide too. So think about what happens when you want to kind of open a or push out toothpaste from toothpaste tube. You open it and you kind of push behind so you can contract behind where you want it to push forward when you're squishing on a toothpaste tube. And it's a similar kind of component. What happens is if you are in the esophagus or the small intestine, and you want to move food along, you contract the smooth muscle here. So think this is mouth, this is anus towards it. So you want to move it forward towards the exit. Well, if you squish smooth muscle and contract it here, but have it relaxed over here, well, things are going to get squished forward. And then, okay, you want to move it forward again. Well, this is moved, so you squish it down here. Move it forward again. So it's just kind of an alternating squishing and relaxing part to just kind of slowly squish it down the line. So you're just kind of slowly moving food along. And that's what peristalsis is. We also have mechanical breakdown. This mainly is going to happen in the mouth, this part of chewing. So teeth are going to break down the food that you're eating. You mix food with saliva, and we'll talk about what saliva does and moisten and help kind of make it into a ball to make it easier to swallow, plus adds enzymes. But the stomach actually is just going to smush food a lot. So mechanical breakdown is actually just using kind of pulverizing or pushing, chewing, all of those things is tearing it apart. And so all the smooth muscle in the stomach actually helps with kind of tearing food into smaller and smaller pieces, again, to make it more manageable for enzymes to break it down. We also have segmentation, which is the different type of movement from peristalsis. This is going to be a mixing movement, not a propulsion movement. So you're not moving necessarily things forward, you're mixing it together. And we're going to talk about it again. But what happens is similar to peristalsis in the fact that you contract here, but you're going to contract and contract here. So you kind of go whoosh and swirl. So you're actually mixing. And then you'll contract here and then you contract here. So you're just kind of alternating so that you're mixing back and forth. So digestive juices can actually mix with the food to help digest it. So you're not necessarily moving things forward down the line. That's peristalsis. Segmentation is a mixing movement. When we get to digestion, so this is all just breaking into smaller pieces and mixing. Digestion is actually chemical breakdown. So you break down carbohydrates into glucose or fructose, the smallest kind of ones that we can absorb. And remember, catabolic, cats are destructive. So catabolic is going to be breakdown. So catabolic enzymes are breaking down the food, and so that you can have it into molecules that can be absorbed, and we use enzymes. So looking at peristalsis, I've already explained it, but we're going to explain it again because sometimes it can get a little confusing. So food is entering the digestive tract, and we call it as a bolus, and it really does look like a ball. So your tongue, Your teeth are going to help chew and break down. Your tongue is kind of going to arrange and mix with salivary secretions, so salivary gland, saliva, and you're going to make a ball. And so you swallow this bolus or this ball of food. And it's moistened by saliva, and you compact it down, so it's just kind of this little ball. Once you get through the pharynx and going into the esophagus, then you need to propel it. And peristalsis is how you push things along. So it's going to be smooth muscle that's going to be in the muscularis externa, so the external part, smooth muscle. And there's going to be an arrangement of the smooth muscle that are going to be circular muscles, which are going to be going around the diameter of it. So this, again, if it's constricting, can make the diameter smaller and push things along, and then it can relax and make the diameter larger. You also have longitudinal muscles that are going lengthwise that can actually kind of relax and contract as well. So both longitudinal and circular smooth muscle are going to help in the movement of peristalsis. And we have kind of that repetitive process of trying to move things along the line. So you contract and push, and then contract and push. So better picture. So this is looking at peristalsis. You can see in this little movement that you have contraction behind the bolus of food, and it's pushing down. So you have contraction kind of continuously going down to then you get down to the stomach. So this is going through the esophagus. So from the mouth towards the anus, the food bolus, the ball of food, you have our longitudinal muscle on the outer part and circular muscle here. The circular muscle contracts behind the bolus, so you're pushing it forward. And the longitudinal muscles, so showing you this way, are going to contract lengthwise. So it's kind of like just pulling as well as pushing. So you're pulling and sliding the muscle backwards this way and squishing forward so that you can move the bolus even farther. Then the bolus moves further, so you contract the smooth muscle here, contract the longitudinal muscle going backwards so that you can push it forward. So it's just kind of like pushing something again out of a tube. You squeeze at the bottom and you kind of pull the wrapping off of it. The longitudinal part is pulling the wrapping off. You can think of that, and then pushing the bolus forward. So again, it's alternating movement of actually pushing food down to the stomach or through the small intestine. Segmentation, again, is different, where you're kind of helping to break down the bolus because you're just kind of sloshing it back and forth so it can break down into pieces. And you're mixing it with everything that we're going to be adding to the intestines to break food down. So you're mixing it with its enzymes and secretions. So there's no kind of smooth pattern like we saw in peristalsis where there's no forward movement. Again, it's sloshing back and forth. So I'll show you a picture next. So you're just going to have a part where you want the food just to kind of move this way and then move that way. So just sort of like you're on the ocean, slosh back and forth and back and forth. And slowly it's going to help break down. It's going to be a good mixing part. So you can think of it just if you've ever watched your washing machine go, where it kind of goes one way and then it'll go the other way when it's mixing. That's sort of like segmentation, where it's just mixing back and forth. It doesn't break down your clothes, but if it was really going fast, then it could. If it was a ball of something. So again, looking at segmentation, you can see there's no actual forward movement. We're just breaking things down. So we come from solid. We go to solid kind of material here. I don't know why it keeps doing that. So then we slowly just kind of contract, and this is mainly going to be the circular muscle, so it's going to contract in certain areas, and it's going to help kind of break it into pieces from here. And then you're going to have different kind of contractions in different areas. It's breaking it up into smaller pieces and mixing it back and forth. So then you're getting smaller pieces, and then it can continue and break it down into smaller and smaller and mix it again, kind of mixing everything around. So we look at, again, digestive processes. We're breaking it down. So mechanical breakdown, digestion. We have secretion. A lot of things are added to your intestinal tract and then absorbed back in. So you use a lot of water. A lot of water is used for chemical breakdown of food. You can use acids, especially in stomach. You use enzymes all over the place to chemically break down the food. You a lot of times have buffers so that you can kind of tame the acidity of some of the secretions. And then we also have salts, and that's a lot of going to be bile salts to help break down fat. So we have a lot of additions to digestion so we can break things down and absorb them. Absorbing is actually getting into the smallest molecules and bringing it into the bloodstream or the lymphatic system. Fat goes directly into the lymphatic system and then goes into the bloodstream. Everything else can go directly into the blood. Lastly, we have excretion or defecation. So everything that can't be digested, that's waste products, is going to be expelled through defecation.